Have you ever been there? You're trying everything to soothe an overtired baby. You're bouncing, you're rocking, you're shushing, and somehow the crying just gets louder and more intense. It is one of the most frustrating and confusing things to go through. Well, welcome to Sleepia, a corner of the internet dedicated to the science of sleep and circadian rhythms. In this explainer, we're going to dive into that exact paradox. We'll look at the real science behind why your best efforts to help can sometimes feel like they're just adding fuel to the fire. I mean, it's got to be one of the toughest parts of being a parent. You have this whole toolbox of go-to moves that usually work like a charm. But then, when your baby is pushed past their limit of tiredness, it's like everything backfires, and you're left standing there thinking, what am I doing wrong? Let me tell you right now, nothing. You're not doing anything wrong. You've just run into a very specific biological trap. And this is where it gets really fascinating. When a baby misses that ideal window for sleep, their body doesn't just get sleepier. No, their little system perceives that extreme exhaustion as a threat, and it triggers a powerful, primitive stress response. We are talking about a full-blown survival mode. Let's really get into the biology here, because understanding what's going on under the hood is the key to all of this. You know that infamous second wind that suddenly appears? Well, that isn't your baby being stubborn or deciding to fight you. It's a totally involuntary chemical reaction happening inside their brain. So, all day long as your baby is awake, a chemical called adenosine builds up in their brain. This is what creates what we call sleep pressure. The more adenosine they have, the higher the pressure, and the sleepier they feel. It's basically the body's natural way of saying, hey, the battery is getting low, it's time to recharge. But here is the critical twist. If that sleep pressure just keeps building and building and building, and it isn't released by sleep, the brain kind of freaks out. It misinterprets that intense exhaustion and thinks, wait a minute, this isn't normal. We must be in some kind of danger. We need to stay awake to survive. And that's when it hits the big red panic button. And here you can see the difference so clearly. A normally sleepy baby just has high levels of adenosine, which is their cue to rest. But an overtired baby? They have that high adenosine, absolutely, but their system is also being flooded with a massive wave of stress hormones. We're talking cortisol and adrenaline. So their body is screaming for sleep and pumping itself full of stay-awake stimulants at the exact same time. Just imagine trying to fall asleep right after drinking a double espresso. That is the internal state of your overtired baby. They are, for all intents and purposes, chemically caffeinated. They are physically incapable of just relaxing and drifting off. You might be thinking, all right, my baby is stressed out, but why doesn't my own calm presence help? We hear all the time about co-regulation, right? That our calm can help calm our baby. So why does it seem to fail so spectacularly in this specific situation? It's because the emotional center of their brain, the amygdala, is completely overwhelmed. Think of it like a smoke detector that's just blaring and blaring, even after you've waved the smoke away. It's so overstimulated by all that internal cortisol and adrenaline that it just can't process any new information correctly. So, and this is so important to remember, your baby isn't ignoring you. They're not rejecting your comfort. Their brain is literally too full of internal chemical static to even register your external calm. Your peaceful vibe simply cannot penetrate the hormonal chaos that's going on inside them. And this gets us right to the heart of the paradox. Because their nervous system is already operating at 110%, any additional input, even your well-intentioned rocking, bouncing, or shushing, is just more stimulation. It's more noise for their overloaded brain to process, which is exactly why it often makes the crying even more frantic. So what can you actually do when you're in this impossible feeling situation? The good news is you're not powerless here. The key is to break the cycle. So let's look at the strategy for doing just that. This is the million-dollar question, right? If adding more stimulation is the problem, then the solution has to be about taking it away. And this requires a fundamental shift in our goal. This is the mind shift that changes everything. You have to stop trying to force sleep. You can't fight cortisol head-on. Instead, you shift your entire focus to just one thing, helping their body lower that chemical load of stress hormones. Your job is to create an environment that signals safety and allows their system to come down from that fight-or-flight state. And we do this with something called a sensory fast. First, you reduce all inputs. Get into a dark, quiet room. Second, you signal safety, and skin-to-skin contact is amazing for this. Third, you use a simple, low-frequency, repetitive sound, like a deep hum or a rumbly white noise. And finally, and this is the hardest part, you wait. You have to patiently ride it out as their body metabolizes all that cortisol. Now let's be super clear about this. This is not crying it out. Not even close. You are right there with them, offering quiet, steady support. You are not abandoning them. You are providing a calm, low-stimulation space so their nervous system can finally get a break from processing the world and deal with its own exhaustion. You know, when you can reframe this meltdown in your own mind, when you see it not as your baby being difficult, but as your baby experiencing an involuntary hormonal emergency, it can dramatically reduce your own frustration. It helps you become their calm anchor in their chemical storm. So if you take just one thing away from this explainer today, let it be this. When you are in the trenches with an overtired baby, stop trying to make them sleep. Instead, just ask yourself, what can I do right now to make their world darker, quieter, and safer to help lower their cortisol? That's the real goal.